And now, a Native Podcast with Matt and Zach.
And welcome back to another episode of A Native Podcast with Matt and Zach. I am Zach, and with me as always is Matt. And I got to start it off that way as always and say, Matt, buddy, how we doing today?
Doing pretty great, man. Doing pretty great. Had a good gym session earlier, or it just had me thinking about the physicality stuff and the native athletes conversation we're about to have.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's exciting stuff. I was kind of thinking about it all day, you know what I mean? Like just kind of like the different avenues, the different structures, things that there are. Because we kind of talked about this on our own of like the traditional versus the contemporary sports. So this episode is actually going to be the contemporary modern day athletics kind of stuff that, you know, pop culture worldwide, US of A is kind of into. Our next episode on this subject will actually be in the traditional games, so we will cover that. So stay tuned for that episode. But today we're just only going to discuss kind of the sports we know because we want to do a little more research on the traditional ones.
right. Well,
So,
exactly. And there's so many sports really too when you when there's a lot of different sports out there. Even golf.
oh, exactly. And Nota Begay, for example, golf. I'm going to talk about him and his foundation too, because kind of when you think of youth, you think of kids. You know, that's kind of who's participating in these sports. So there's a lot of opportunities for them, or different just native things that we don't even know existed. So it's good to share that and talk about it. You know, again, this is kind of your 101 guide. We're your 101 guides here. We're not trying to like say, hey, we're experts on this stuff, but we're just saying, hey, here's a doorway. Open up the door. If you want to get into native sports, you want to understand native sports, you know, it all kind of comes together. But here's kind of that focus.
Right, right.
Before we get started in today's episode, Matt, I gotta ask you, what do you have for us? Fun fact? Any fun fact in store?
Yeah,
Yeah.
related to this topic actually was it was fairly recent, but Lindy Waters the third, who for listeners is a professional basketball player, played for a long time with we'll get more into him, but Oklahoma City Thunder, he was recently traded to the Golden State Warriors,
Oh,
and which will be really interesting because I know the Bay Area has a fair amount of Native people. He'll have a strong following there, the Warriors, with that name, with him, you know.
oh yeah. No,
Interesting stuff.
he'll
So
be interesting. He's a Oklahoma native, yes.
he is a born and raised. He's Kiowa Cherokee, and my dad was telling me he's like a plethora of other tribes as well, all from Oklahoma. Went to college there as well. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. I was
Um,
trying to see. There was this one foundation. I'm trying to find them here on my phone.
I'm oh, his foundation you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking it up as well because I maybe that'll be good to pull up here in a bit.
yeah. But other than that, I think we have a good episode in store for you guys today. Um, I guess when native sports comes to mind, you kind of think athletes, right? Athletics. What are those sports? You know, when you look at them, I think football, basketball, baseball, kind of are those. There are hockey. So
Mhm.
maybe I could pull some hockey names up too here. Because I didn't even think about that sport. And then soccer. I don't know if there's any Native American soccer players actually that are out there that I know about. So maybe we can do a quick Google search as well. But from when it comes down to like Native American football players, there are some active Native American football players, and I believe Malcolm Rodriguez for the Detroit Lions. He's a defensive player for the Detroit Lions. He is a Cherokee and as well Aztec. He's also his
Yeah.
father's side is Mexican.
Mhm.
Um, Famously, Jim Thorpe was a um, football player, and you all may know about him. He played football. But that's kind of back in the day when you jumped around a little bit more in sports and were able to do a lot of sports. But he's one of the most athletic Native Americans of all time, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he
He,
played several sports too, from my
track
understanding.
as well, yeah, because he was a son of an Indian blacksmith in the Sac and Fox region of Oklahoma. He grew up with impressive athletic ability to wow the world, us included. He's a two-time gold medal Olympic champion in the 1912 Olympics in the decathlon and pentathlon. He was a professional football star, and he's a member of the Hall of Fame. Tyler Bray, he's a member of the Potawatomi tribe. He played for the Chiefs, the Bears, and the 49ers from 2013 to 2021. He went to the University of Tennessee.
Mhm.
um, I'm trying to see here. Doesn't show. Oh, Potawatomi. Yeah, I said that already.
Um,
Yeah. Keenan Allen is another famous one. He's actually one of the more athletic ones we talk about. He's still playing. He started in the league in 2013. He is the Lumbee tribe from North Carolina. Um, and for him, he played a lot with the Chargers, but the Lumbee are a state recognized tribe. Um, and I think he's also part African American as well.
yeah.
Another famous one, back 1919, 1927, Joe Guyon. He was during the
Mm.
time of Jim Thorpe there. Doesn't say what tribe he was. But when you look at like the teams that he played on the Canton Bulldogs, the Washington Senators, the Union Quakers of Philadelphia, the Cleveland Indians, the Orang Indians, the Rock Island Independents, the Kansas City Cowboys, and the New York Giants. And I just want to point out that when you do go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton and you look at that, they do talk about some of these native teams early in the day
Mhm.
playing football, right? They kind of actually helped shape the sport of football early in the 1800s, 1900s in the Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan region. When you look at that, when you look at a lot of the teams and who they were comprised of. Um, I know for a fact Oregon State back in like the 1800s, 1890s played Chamawa boarding school.
Oh
We have a
wow.
college team playing that, but that was different back then because they did have older kids playing sports, right? Like it was okay. It was weird, and Schmel actually won a couple of the matches when you look at it,
Oh wow.
the
Well,
1890s. Yeah,
and then Oregon State, like it wasn't the big Division I university it is now. It was like an agricultural college. It was really small back in the day.
it was. But when you look at a lot of those West Coast colleges and then the Pac-12 West Coast colleges, they were some of the like more in larger institutions out west, the more established
Oh right.
institutions out west, right? So like when it came to football, like Oregon State rivalry is one of the oldest in college sports,
Wow.
and it used to be that way. And I
Well,
so it used to be that way.
I totally get what you're saying because isn't Stanford and Cal are fairly old too, and the big
Right.
California and when they were or the different mascot they were the Cardinals.
Well, and I mean that's for a different podcast, different
Yeah.
subject. But when you get into the Pac-12 and their whole thing, right? That was kind of like, whoa, UCLA, USC, they were even a part of that. Washington State was a part of that, right? It was this historical thing for hundreds of years that was this West Coast sports.
Mm.
And you look at their history, they would play some of these native teams. James Winchester, also another Philadelphia Eagle, Kansas City Chief, 2013 present day. He's another Native American football player. But that's kind of some of the more popular ones, more of the name featured
Oh
ones.
yeah.
There are other ones out there. There are people who, we don't even know about that may be enrolled to tribes that don't necessarily express their tribal enrollment. Um, so
Right.
like I don't go ahead.
Oh, I know there's been a fair amount of linemen, and with how football works, the linemen they get shuffled around, they're in and out a lot. There's a guy for I want to say it was the Rams, and he
Mm.
was enrolled
Oh,
Washoe, Nevada. There's
right,
bigger guy, and I'm blanking on his name, but you have a lot of linemen too that uh
right.
As well as, I mean, it's worth mentioning here, obviously, there's a huge Polynesian,
Huge.
you get Native Hawaiians in there moving in and out. I know Troy Polamalu brought
Oh
in,
yeah.
even though he's half Samoan, he brought in a lot of native fan base too from tribes here. So
Right.
that's
Well, and then we talk about that on the mascot episode too with the Redskins, right? Like there's even native fans of the Redskins just because it was the native team, you know.
right. No, and
So,
football goes way back, like you said, to the Jim Thorpe team and the Hominy Indians of Oklahoma
yeah.
team playing and beating the New York Giants.
Well, and that's it. It was when those were just football clubs,
Mhm.
right? That people forget about that. And then I laugh because then like you do look at like there's not a lot of native teams that at least here in Montana that do well in football, right? They don't really there's not a lot of kids that go out for football. Some of these teams don't even have field football teams some years. And so it's kind of one of those sports that it's faded away. I saw Rocky Boy won like their Northern Division champs for the first time. Like it's their first divisional football champ ever,
Oh, wow.
school history kind of thing. And I was like, holy crap, like that's huge. That's a big thing to celebrate. And I mean, it's also showing how popular I think football is as the American sport that it is.
Right. Well, and then the popularity of it with Native youth, it remains fairly constant because you have the Indigenous Youth Showcase now in the winter that they usually host down in like Southern California, I want to say, one of the
Oh yeah.
tribes. And the Native kids from high schools all over the country, the best players go. You
Well, they
know,
have the one in Minnesota too.
yes, yep. So
Yeah.
they have a few of them now, which they didn't have those like 10 years
No.
ago, 15 years ago.
They did have the Polynesian Bowl. I think that started about 10, 15 years ago. And that's another one of those that kind of indigenous, when you're talking indigenous, right? Definitely.
Did you know there's a new native apparel company?
No, I did not.
It's called Shop LS 574, named after the 574 federal tribes and the Little Shell descendancy of its founders.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
It is. It is becoming a spot to order native apparel by and for natives, working with native designers and teams to help best represent Indian country.
That's awesome, dude.
For sure. Now make sure to go pick up some Native podcast swag as well as other native gear while shopping at shopls574.com.
Oh yeah, and do not forget to use code ANP10 to save on your next order.
That's ANP10. Hey Matt, did you know there's a tribally owned net company?
No, I did not.
Not only are they tribally owned, but Blue Ribbon Nets also creates totally sustainable products. With Blue Ribbon Nets, not only are you getting quality nets, but even eco-friendly ones as well.
That's awesome, dude.
It sure is indeed. Make sure to use code RUGAROO10 on your next Blue Ribbon Net order to save. Again, the code is RUGAROO10, RUGARU10.
I am definitely getting a blue ribbon net now.
Tune in every Tuesday to hear your favorite native podcast.
That's right. A Native Podcast has new episodes every week, ranging from boarding schools to Indian child welfare.
Not only that, but we have Indian country covered from Maine to California and Florida to Alaska, Hopi to Blackfeet and Choctaw to Tlingit, and all those Crees in between.
And all you other natives and non-natives out there, we want to remind you to tune in this Tuesday to A Native Podcast.
Another one I want to bring up is baseball, right? America's pastime. It's another famous sport. And in that, right, you have the Cleveland Indians, right? Now the Cleveland Guardians, but part of the reason they got their name was like, hey, we're playing the Indians. You know, there's a couple Indians on the team. You know, the first Native American player actually played in 1897. His name was Louis Sock Alexis. He was Penobscot. Bill File followed him up in 1898. He was Lakota. That's why I want to mention that for you. He had a Lakota one. Then you have a couple Ojibways. These are all early 1900s. Seneca, Mohawk, Ojibwe, Kickapoo, Cheyenne, Cherokee, Sac Fox, Winnebago, a bunch of Cherokees. All throughout the history, honestly, I'm looking 1930s, 1934, 1940s, 1946, 1964, 1973. So this is where they started to really come away from the game. But all the way to 1946, it seems like you had a native player in the league.
Oh wow.
Cherokee, Chickasaw, Muskogee, Choctaw, Creek, Choctaw, Potawatomi. And then in the 70s, you have two Lumbee players, Gene Locklear and Dwight Lowry. Uh, and then in 2001, you had Kyle Lohse, Lohse, Nomlaki Winton, Bobby Madrakish, it was in 2004 was Lakota, and then one of the more famous ones in recent eras was Jacoby Ellsbury, who is Navajo. He did grow up in Madras on the Warm Springs Reservation, however. And he played in the league for 10 years. Jabba Chamberlain, another Yankee pitcher, famous Yankee pitcher, 2007, 2016, another long career. He was Winnebago.
Oh wow.
Dallas Beeler is Chickasaw. And then the two active players right now that they have listed are Ryan Hensley, who is Cherokee, and Brandon Bailey, who is Chickasaw. And they've been in the league since 2019 to 2020.
Only two that are claiming it essentially.
Currently active, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
And that's I think at the professional level, right?
Right.
Um
Well,
and
Jacoby Ellsbury was such a, and he was, I mean, what, he was an all-star, wasn't he?
oh yeah, I mean he's
You know,
one
he
of the
was,
highest paid outfielders in MLB history kind of guy.
right.
Yeah, no, he was.
Yeah. And
He's
going
part of
from,
the reason Oregon State baseball is the powerhouse it is. He was in
right.
those first few years, 2005, 2006. 2005 actually. He left before they won the chips.
Well, and playing for such prominent baseball teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees, and you know, unfortunately, he was plagued with injuries. He just
Yeah.
kept getting hurt, but he had, I mean, he had a hell of a career in his short
I
time.
I think he also did win a World Series with the Red Sox. I think he did.
I want to say he did, yeah.
I think he did get a ring, and because the Yankees haven't got one in a long time. This World Series was since 2009. They actually have not been, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it Joe Kobe Ellsbury. I mean, he's good. I mean, he's an icon when you look at the baseball natives. You know that really stand out to me. And I think it's hard too sometimes. Is like you do have some of those guys that are Cherokee or Chickasaw. Like it's more southern,
Right.
and so you don't get like the West Coast doesn't buy into them as much.
No.
Like, and it kind of sucks. It's like we need to support all natives, but like you see that buy-in when it is like a Lakota or a Blackfoot or a Crow. You know what I mean? Like, oh wow, they're from Mescalero, they're Apache. You know what? But you're like, oh, Cherokee. Like it sucks. It really does suck, and that's part of the people who have really dehumanized natives, right? They use terms like that. They take our names and they ruin them. But that's again another podcast, another subject. And then I
Yeah.
think when you like we said, like when we get into the sports, the basketball, right? I think that's another good one. Res ball, we talk about Res ball. The movie just came out.
Right.
We have a list of basketball players. You have Chauncey Arkachet, Ron Baker, Marjan Beauchamp, who's currently in the league,
Mhm.
Rydenelli Beckenty, Suzanne Big Crow, Joe Burton, Wilson Charles, Sandy Cohen, Bison Deli, Natalie Diaz, Sunny Dove, Angela Goodrich, Gary Gray, Phil Homrathra, Kyrie Irving on his mother's side, Phil Jordan, Chief Kicking Stallion Sims, Bronson Coing, Jesse Rennick, Tahani Robinson, Shoney and Jude Schimmel, John Starks, Ben Strong, Lindy Waters, who you're a big fan of, Derek Willis. And then you also have that Alyssa Peely, currently in the WNBA, another big current star, I would say. She's actually a star.
Oh yeah, no, she's a great player on that list. I remember during March Madness, the Bronson Koenig guy, he's Winnebago from Wisconsin, and he was for Wisconsin, and
Oh,
that was
okay.
a big thing up there. I remember
Yeah.
that, and the native following he had in those days of March Madness, and they went fairly far. I want to say they went to the Elite Eight that year. Um,
Right.
but just having that presence and him being like a star player on that team, he was a second leading scorer, I want to say.
Yeah.
So, you have and the Schimmel sisters, and there's a few Oregon connections here today, but
Yeah.
they really for girls, just
Yeah.
visibility and again March Madness, right? So
Well, N7, I believe they're N7 athletes.
yep.
They really help. They actually really helped, I think, with the launch of N7. When you think of like when N7 was first coming out, right? Like you had like, hey, these two girls playing basketball, and you're in, like you said, Oregon, right? Uh,
They really highlighted N7 in their prime like takeoff years, when they were
oh yeah,
really like natives or what's N7? Like who's N7?
yeah,
Uh,
no, exactly.
and I know Joe Burton from Oregon State was a big N7 guy, and I actually had some classes with him. Cool guy. He plays over in I want to say France now for professionals over there. So he's playing international and he's a Native American. So
Oh, and then there's a girl, the other girl I'm thinking of for Seattle.
Seattle
What's
Storm,
yeah,
WNBA. Let me
yeah.
let me see real quick. Oh, yes, I can't think of her name, but I know who
Um,
you're talking about.
yeah. What was her name?
I mean, Angel Goodrich.
Was that who I'm thinking of?
It no, Mackenzie Sue, it's not Sue Bird.
Was Sue Bird native? That's who I'm thinking of. I think I'm thinking of Sue Bird.
Well, what is Angel Goodrich? I think it's Angel. Oh, wait a second.
That's I did say Angel Goodrich. Maybe I am thinking of Angel Goodrich.
Yeah, yeah, because Sue Bird is Russian Jewish heritage.
Sue's an advocate though?
Yes,
That's what I'm thinking of.
she's a big WNBA. Like, I think she works for the WNBA now.
Okay. That's just
Um, but yeah, oh yeah, Angel Goodrich. She played for the Tulsa Shock also. And I
okay.
want to say she's from a tribe in Oklahoma. I'm trying to find Google's being Google. Oh yeah, she's a member of Cherokee Nation. Angel
Right.
Goodrich. Yeah, Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Yep.
Nice. Well, and
Yeah.
then you have, I mean, then you even have soccer players. There's even soccer players. Madison Hammond is the first Native American to play in the NWSL. Hammond is
Oh,
Navajo, San Felipe, and Black. She plays for Angel City FC. So there's a lot of Native athletes out there. You know,
yeah, there was Chris Wondolowski was for the San Jose Earthquakes and he was a Kiowa tribal
Yep.
member. I remember that was a few years back. He was also an N7 athlete too.
Yeah, and then Luke Brennan, he was an Atlanta player also. He would be the league's second ever Native.
Oh wow.
It's interesting that yeah, there's not a lot in the soccer.
Not a lot in the soccer realm.
No, but and then I guess hockey, you look at current indigenous players, hockey definitely a lot more indigenous players. More from Canada, right? So you have uh here's the current indigenous hockey players in the NHL, right? You have Brandon Montour, Six Nations, Connor Dewar, Métis, Carey Price, Yukato First Nation, Brady Keeper, Cross Lake First Nation, Travis Hominick, Métis, Garrett Pilon, Métis, Zach Whitecloud, Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, uh, TJ Oshie, White Earth Nation, Kalen Addison, Métis, Ethan Bear, he's Ochapowask. Current NHL prospects. So there's even native prospects for different teams that I guess have been drafted, all from Canada though.
Well, and like as the hockey people are coming up, you think, the more northern US states is obviously going to be more prominent in those tribes, right? Um, just with where hockey is popular, right? Yeah, you have teams in other states more south, but they're not, the ice. It all's rooted because they'd skate outside back in the day. Um,
Right. Well, and then there's even right here, there's a cool website I'm on now. It's called Indigenous hockeyindigenous.com. And that's where they have that list, right? It has the list of current, here's some recruits. They even have current coaches.
oh,
Pro scouts, chief amateur scout, assistant coach, and pro scout. There's four in the current NHL jobs, is kind of what that's saying. And then they have programs, Indigenous Athlete Spotlight, ambassadors, resources, Indigenous rookie cards, Stanley Cup winners. So they even have them right here, 1928, Clarence Abel, Chippewa, right? They have the whole who's what tribe when they won a championship. So that's a cool resource there. If you're into hockey, the hockey indigenous, they have indigenous database is what they call it. So there's
Yeah,
even,
there's a lot in Canada, a whole lot. Probably.
well, right now I'm looking even right now. Yeah, there's even an interactive high level indigenous database of current players that you can look at. So definitely a lot out there. Um, Another good resource, kind of as I'm on the topic of resources, in my opinion, is NDN Sports.
Mhm.
They tout themselves as the number one resource for Native American sports. They include lacrosse. I think we're going to talk about lacrosse in our traditional episode,
Yeah.
just because it is a more of a traditional game, but there is modern lacrosse teams such as the Haudenosaunee. There's track. There's a lot of track, a lot of runners out there, a lot of good runners in the college level, even professional running. Um, currently you have some runners at like Grand Canyon University, North Dakota. Yeah, I mean, I just remember like Harden right here. They're talking about Harden runners, freshman athlete doing well in cross country. Another shocking one too for me was softball. I see a lot. There's a lot of native softball players.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I kind of wonder too with the girls with softball, it's like baseball, we're not seeing it, but right recently it's been an uptick with softball, like
Right.
as a shift for girls, you know, for a sport other than basketball, obviously.
Well, here I'm pulling up on my phone here. I remember sending you this data. So they did a survey this year, 2024, across the NCAA, right? And this is kind of where the softball comes into play, right? This is where it shook my mind. Was there are 2,315 Native American student athletes in the NCAA. That's a 31% increase from 2013 to 2014. That's awesome. That's great to hear. By division, 544 of those are in Division One. 981 are in Division Two. 790 are in Division Three. So definitely those lower divisions, like MSUB is a Division Two school. Makes sense. Division Three, you're getting closer to the tribal college area. Softball, though, however, 169 Native American student athletes. And I'm right here on this ndnsports.com right here. They're even talking about Riley Boone, Osage for Oklahoma Sooners. Right, so now she's playing for this professional Sparks, which is a professional softball team, but she was national
Oh,
champion
wow.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
There was 3 Native women in the College World Series last year. Um, it looks like it's not loading though.
Well, Indian sports is another really good one. If you want to see what high schoolers are up and coming that are native as well, they highlight them pretty well.
Yes, no, they highlight pretty much any native news about native sports, which is awesome. Yeah, so in the College World Series for women's softball, you had Seneca Curro. She's a Verona band of Mission Indians. She played on UCLA. Riley Boone was Osage from Oklahoma University, and Lily Walker is Chickasaw from Duke University. And that was just in the College World Series. But you even had a Mississippi Choctaw, Aspen Wesley. She was named SEC Pitcher of the Week last year. So definitely, and it looks like I'm reading here. There's a lot of Chickasaw, different name: Mississippi Choctaw, Hopi Quapaw, Navajo, Pawnee. So definitely your Oklahoma. And
Right,
Oklahoma's known for softball. That's where they have the College World Series for women.
right. Those Southern Plains regions seem more heavy with that.
I know we hype up res ball, but baseball and softball, man, where's some
Yeah,
indigenous roots? You know what I mean?
there really are, man. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, because it's just basketball, just it's an overshadow, right? It's kind of like the way I explain it to some of my friends who aren't native, it's like, you know how like in the Mexican community, like soccer is like king essentially. In the native community, it's basketball.
Right.
You
Maybe
know?
that's it. We haven't had historically we haven't had that many. So now we're like Marjan and Lindy Waters. These guys are finally, Kyrie, they're finally starting to get that. Then we'll have that one guy. Because Kyrie, I think Kyrie, if he was full native, he
Yeah,
would be unreal. But
right.
because it's like, oh, his mother, it's one of those. If we had that native that was just like that good, like if Steph
Right.
Curry was like,
Steph Curry.
Calamith, if he was from Calamith down there, that'd
Every
be
native
wild.
kid would have his jersey on.
Every single one, yeah. Back along the native student athletes, 407 play football and 187 play baseball, and those are the top three sports. So
Oh wow.
now,
Baseball's up and coming then after kind of a slump, I would argue, for a while.
they've changed a lot with the game. Actually, I went to a Minnesota Twins game this summer, and they have a pitch clock now, so it's like they try
Oh,
to speed up the game. So like the
oh,
pitcher can't just
interesting.
sit there and waste time. Like it's like, no, you had 10 seconds to throw the pitch kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that was part of the game is they were taking forever. So there's new rules. So
Right.
maybe that's what it is. But I really like this NDN sports. They even have volleyball,
Oh,
which
wow.
like you do get some tall native women. Like you do. I have seen them. They're good at volleyball. Emoni Bush, Washington. Wahkum First Nation. Callie Kemoa Osage. She's Oklahoma Sooners. And then you have freshman Sanine Brewer. She's Navajo Cherokee for the Lobos in New Mexico. So the Haskell Indian University, they also have a lot of native athletes there at the native college. But you had Tressa Jim. She's Potawatomi. She's attacker in the conference of the year, not of the year, but attacker of the week. And then Pitt, Pittsburgh University ACC Freshman of the Week, Ryla Jones. She's Cree. So those are just some this year in volleyball right now, college volleyball.
Oh, wow. Um, I wanted to highlight someone here who I was just
Yeah.
of in track and field. You mentioned track and field, and it kind of spurred a thought with like runners. And you typically, especially in the plains in the Southwest, I've noticed you have a lot of good distance runners with the youth. Hopi, you see some of those runners, you see the plains kids, but in track and field, Janae Casanovid, who is Comanche, she's a two-time world medalist in the hammer throw.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, she won third and second place. So she's two-time medalist um in the last Summer Olympics. So she got second.
That's
So I
awesome.
like her. Yeah, she's pretty big, strong, muscular girl, and just she's like kind of like a model now as well,
Oh wow.
and involved with Nike N7. So you have a lot of kind of like, what do you call it? For N7, they're ambassadors, right? You have
Yep.
a lot of
Ambassadors.
ambassadors now that are native and promoting their sport too at the same time.
Well, kind of along those lines, I mean, when you go to the Nike N7, right? And they kind of talk, it falls under their diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of brand. They're proudly indigenous. Hear us, see us, rise together. We stand together as a community in pursuit of visibility, representation, and our equity, and remain true and authentic to ourselves and our community. Our community has shown up and reminded each other of the innate strength and resilience of indigenous people. We continue to respect and recognize the contributions we have made. We acknowledge that our Nike World headquarters is located in part on top of the Tualatin Kalapuya village of Chakapia. This recognition allows us the honor to generational ancestors by identifying where we come from while showing up as proudly indigenous in every space we enter. Our indigenous values bring spirit of unity that is needed in the world, especially right now. They also have the Nike Native American Friends and Network, which is a population network of employees grounded in indigenous culture, empowered to reach maximum potential. So Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Um,
see. They do have an internship program. If you are interested, they have that. The N7 team hosts an intern to support the N7 production team for 12 weeks. More information about the N7 collection is below. To be eligible for the N7 internship, candidates must be a current student in their junior year and pursuing their bachelor's degree. They have community giving since its creation in 2009. The Nike N7 Fund has awarded more than $8 million in grants administered by the Charities Aid Foundation of America to no more than 270 communities and organizations. Every year, Nike N7 launches what are inspired by the colors and materials and elemental forces while embodying the values, stories, and diversity of indigenous traditions and craft. These collections and programs that surround them serve indigenous and native communities by fostering cultural wellness that ultimately leads to healthier, happier, and more successful lives. And I think if you look at the Nike N7 collection that was just done, you do see I think it was the lady, she's from here, Wolf Point or Fort Peck, that designed the most up to date set of N7 stuff. Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of ambassadors in the running stuff. Definitely go to that Indian Sports. There's a good topic on that.
yeah, they do a good job of promoting like living healthier and active lifestyles as well with the N7 work.
And now we'd like to take the time to pause and take you to Music on a Native Podcast, where we like to feature Native American musicians and artists with their songs. This week, Natani means warrior.
We come from warrior blood, us men. So that feeling that you have at times when you're angry and you're upset, that goes generations back. When we had that. We had to fight for our women and our children and our elders.
The last of a dying breed, with dreams of being free. Hooked up to the tree to breathe, bleed my sins away. Future's not tomorrow but today. See death creeping around the corner. Call the coroner on another fallen warrior in the land of the forgotten. Bad seeds already rotten. Popping pills to fill the void of death knocking. You can guarantee the feds watching, cause we grew up around these revolutionaries who went to Wounded Knee to get their hearts buried. Raised a hustle once I seen my mama struggle. Born in the heart where our chiefs bled, where the water tastes like lead, where we deal with these alcoholics and meth heads. Fed lies from the school system, misinterpret Thanksgiving, teach history like it's fiction. What's written ain't fact. We take down these flags, raise an eagle staff. I'm a warrior, the last of a dying breed, with dreams of being free, hooked up to the tree to breathe. Fighting to live, living to die, till I'm with my people up in the sky. Till I'm with my people up in the sky. Yo, I said I'm really on my worst behavior, hoping to find strength in prayer. Creator got my back, but crazy horse my savior. Lost in illusions, conscious decisions, lost in confusion. My people prostituting, traditions losing values, what we doing? I'm rising from the bottomless pits, where the blind grip closed fists with cold fists. My young kids are crying. I'm trying, fighting, but we keep on dying. I'm sick of seeing people sick, healing in bottles of 80 proof. Been fighting wars since 1490 deuce. You want the truth? I'll speak existence in this booth. My homies in the Senate counting coup. What's new? So motherfucker John Wayne, motherfuck your campaigns. I'm still in acid rain, spit more heat than hell's flames. I'm a warrior to the death of me, fight until there's nothing left in me. Cops killing, no wonder why my homies stay strapped. Fuck reppin' the state, I got my people on my back. Last of a dying breed, with dreams of being free. Hooked up to the tree to breathe. Hooked up to the tree to breathe. Fighting to live, living to die, till I'm with my people up in the sky. Till I'm with my people up in the sky.
And that was Natani Means Warrior. Thank you for listening to music on A Native Podcast with Matt and Zach. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, I did want to briefly mention a sport that has a lot of we didn't mention yet was boxing. And
Yes.
we don't have to go super deep into it, but I just wanted to share this one person that I think is notable to mention. His name was Joe Hip, and he was a Blackfeet professional heavyweight boxer. And in 1995, I would include that in more modern. Hip became the first Native American to challenge for and win a world heavyweight boxing championship. He ended his career with a 43-7 record.
Who was that? What was his
Joe
name?
Hip.
So I also see one too. There's a guy by the name of Marvin Camel, Salish Kootenai. He's a boxing's first Native American world champion, and he was named to inaugural Ronan Hall of Fame. So, I mean, very different weight classes too, probably. And that's another thing, right? People don't understand when it comes to, well, he was a weight champion. Well, there's different weight classes, right?
Well, when they say the first, this guy was heavyweight that I mentioned, right? Like,
right.
I know when we interview your grandpa very soon, he will probably have a story or two about his boxing days.
Right.
And my great uncle, also was a boxer the same time period your grandpa was. So,
well, exactly. And like that was a big thing, I think, on reservations was those boxing clubs. There's even a boxing club here in Wolf Point. But when you look at like the artwork on the building, the way it looks, you're like, oh, yeah, I could see about 50, 60, 70 years ago that being really like the spot to go to. You know what I mean? So I totally get it. And my grandpa, boxing was huge actually. And I think one of the big things too, when you look at like the modern boxing world, it's kind of gone away because and one MMA has kind of taken over, and Cody, which is Sarah's husband, we definitely need to have him on. My uncle Cody, he was one of the first Native American boxers in the WEC at that time was what it was called, which it was a part of. He was working. Dana White was a part of that too. It was the WEC before it really formed into the Ultimate Fight, the UFC. So he.
Well, I'd love to hear his stories personally. I'm sure he's got some good ones.
No, those are some good interviews we both need to do because like your uncle, my grandpa. That's a part of the culture growing up with those boxing clubs. And my grandpa actually, real quick, a quick story is when he was boxing, he was getting recruited to go to college. He showed me letters like, here's the University of Memphis sent me this, the University of Wisconsin sent me this, the University of San Jose, California sent me this, like all these letters he had. And then what happened was, I think in the NCAA championship or something, some kid got killed in the round. He actually got killed, and they just quit college boxing then. So he ended up staying in Montana and going to the University of Montana instead, and then dedicating his life to education, right? So that's definitely one of those things. But you do have Native Americans in boxing. I mean, there's not a lot out there, but there is a Millie Lax Ojibwe has a indigenous boxing world championship tournament. Beth Smoke is a Mohawk woman. She is a current boxer moving up the rankings. When you get into mixed martial arts, you do have a lot of natives there that have tried. Hunter Azure, he was a Assiniboine Sioux here from Fort Peck, was another good one. Cody, we talked about him. And then they come and go because I feel like once you lose UFC, you're kind of over.
Right. There was about 10 years back, there was this guy, I just pulled him up. His name was George Tadanopa. And he went by Comanche Boy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a middleweight boxer and he came out in a headdress to his fights. And it was kind of he had a bit of a following for about 5 years there. And he's like in his 40s now and doesn't box, but it's just, you get these waves with certain people who make it more big time in certain sports that aren't like popular numbers wise,
Right. No, exactly. And you get that like weird following of like people are weirdly tuned into boxing right now because the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson stuff, right? But then you're going to go fade away for it after the fight for another year or two. That's actually this Friday, Matt. So
I know. I was like, we should order it for Friday night.
Don't have to order it. It's on Netflix.
Oh, well.
So no, we'll be good. Another sport I would like to get into, talk a little bit about is golf. What you're like, golf, what? But down in the Southwest, down in Albuquerque, especially, you look at like some of the pueblos, some of the golf courses they have there, Arizona, right? There are Native American golfers out there. New Mexico State has Aiden Thomas. He's Laguna Pueblo. He's really good right now. But you also have Noda Begay, who was a professional golfer, and he was Navajo. And he set up the Noda Begay Fund. And what that is, the Noda Begay, the NB3 Foundation. And it is a national award-winning Native-led nonprofit leading the way to improve Native American children's health. Each day, thousands of Native youth wake up facing significant health challenges and barriers to living full lives. The good news is that most are preventable, and together we are changing this reality. The NB3 Foundation is changing the lives of Native American children by supporting and funding Native-driven, culturally centered programs by providing direct opportunities for Native youth to live healthy, active lives. We believe that the success must be driven at the local level and focus on holistic prevention, including child, family, and community. Our approach focuses on our 4 core areas: physical activity, healthy nutrition, youth development, and cultural connections. Together, these areas help provide youth with important protective factors that help them achieve their full potential. We remain committed to a vision that all children have the opportunity to live healthy, happy, and fulfilled lives. So, and then they have they have the NB3 Fit, which is their direct youth programming, the community empowerment, which is national grant making, evaluation, and research as well. So they have a lot going on, and they do. I've seen good things out of the Noda Begay.
He does a
Foundation.
lot of good charitable work for tribal communities, and another one too is Ricky Fowler, who
Yep.
was a Navajo golfer, and because there's only a few in the PGA, right now,
Right.
with those two, and there may be a few others too, but
They're there, man. They're in that. They're out there. Those native athletes. They're doing
well,
that.
and I think of golf too, because now with the native youth, if you're a native youth who maybe you're kind of small and you're not, you don't want to train or work out, like, I mean, golfing's that's very it's somewhat physical, but it's mental as well, right? It's more strategy.
And like I look here, Wolf Point, like we even have a golf course. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you have that stuff in some of these remote places. And kids, one thing I'm learning is some of these kids, they'll join a sports team just to leave the reservation.
Right.
Just to do something. So it's like I learned golf because I wanted to go to all these different places and
Mhm.
whatnot. So there's a lot of like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons too, but when you look at it, another thing I think about is like when you look at some of the more remote native kids and places, you're not going to have a lot of those sports. You're going to have your basic sports, your volleyball for girls, your football for guys, your basketball. Like I was lucky to go to a school that had swimming, but not a lot of the A schools even had swimming. All the double A schools didn't, but not all the A. So
Right.
when you're talking about B, C schools, in size, that's the class, right? And double A, triple A, single A, they all have that. You're like where you guys are from. Like what, single A is 6-man football?
It's 1A through 6A, and
Mhm.
they now have 6-man. They used to
Yeah.
just be 6-man, 8-man, then 3A is the first 11-man level,
Right. So our C schools, we have 6 and 8-man football at our C schools, and that's kind of the size. And there's a lot of native schools that fall into those categories.
Right.
A lot of good basketball at the C school, B school level of a lot of those native schools when they
They're
face up against each other. Good res
very
ball.
competitive at those levels too. Like those lower levels, people, oh, they're not as good as a big school, but it's fast paced. It's like physical. It's
I think part of it is the like amateurness of it, where it's like that team could, sure they're all seniors this year, but next year they're all freshmen because
right.
that's how big the town is, like it's very like, yeah, you may
Uh,
have that one good senior this year.
you have a whole group come through for the 4 years a lot with those, like you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. That team of parents that really said, here's that one. We're gonna or yeah, you have the senior or junior where it's like that's really it. Like
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
You got stuck with the shitty kids, like your younger kids,
And
not
then you
shitty.
have those slumps too, those slump years. I was gonna say too, this could be another whole podcast, but I will mention it is like rodeo and horse racing, right? Because
Right.
there's a lot you could go into traditionally.
Well, and I think we were going to talk about the rodeo stuff. It's different because it's a modern culture, but it's not a modern sport, right? Like you're not like not a lot of people listening, yeah, are baseball, football, soccer fans, or even rodeo fans, right? Or even some of them have never been to their first rodeo, pun intended, right? But we could talk. I mean, a little bit about that. You got like Naja Knight, right? Like she's the bull rider, so definitely if you're interested in that, pay attention to her. And then what's his name? The guy,
Oh, you got so you have the team roper who's in the PBR is Derek Big A.
right?
And then you have the bull rider who is in the PBR, and these are the big time, not the natives.
Right.
And you have Kashawn Whitehorse is his
Sean
name.
Whitehorse. That's what I'm
Those
thinking
are
of. And then
some.
you do have like the Indian National Finals rodeo as well, which is its own native rodeo event. But like you said, I think horse culture rodeo could almost be like that. Those sports
Mhm.
can almost be traditional. So we might maybe talk about them with the traditional sports, maybe its own episode. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
we can
know.
tie in Indian relay in with that same kind of as a sport traditional, right?
Right.
Argument.
Because I think rodeo is contemporary in the sense that when they came out west, natives were kind of like, hey, learn like the white people are like, hey, you got to do our thing and farm now.
Right.
So part of it was like, okay, yeah. And then that Western culture of bareback riding, rodeo riding, that was kind of it. If you do ever get the chance to come up here to Montana's oldest rodeo, and I know Livingston likes to tout themselves as the oldest rodeo in Montana, but they're not. Wolf
not.
Point is
Wolf Point.
a whole 1 year older. And our rodeo the night before, they have what's called a ranch rodeo.
Oh.
And that's where like local ranch hands have a rodeo.
Oh, wow.
So it's more real in that sense, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Less-
who can
less
stay on a cow the
regulated.
longest, you know? Yeah.
That's funny. Less rules, less regulation,
Oh
more.
yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
exactly.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of it with sports. Like you said, this isn't a deep dive. It's just kind of a highlighting who, what, where, when, why, how. We've been around, we're athletic and we know it, we're proud of it.
Right.
But I guess Matt, any final words from you?
Yeah. The last thing I was going to mention here, you mentioned Nota Begae's foundation. I had pulled up here. Lindy Waters III also has a foundation for basketball. Check out the website. It's LW 3ifoundation.com. And basically his foundation is, enhance support Native American youth health wellness programs, as well as increase exposure for young Native athletes to like get recruited, for the college level. So he does some really good stuff there as a current NBA player. So
Nice.
yeah, check out his foundation.
And go give them a like and follow too, man. Like definitely those native athletes, when it comes down to it, I have not seen a lot of native like support in the sense that like you don't see the jerseys the same way you do like the LeBron jerseys or the KD jerseys, right? Like I'll see I'm sure I'll go to a basketball game, this winter here, and I'm going to see Curry jerseys in high school stands, right? And it's like we need to really do a good job about supporting those native athletes that way and getting behind their NIL deals and getting behind those kind of things, because the fact of the matter is it's us, the fans, that drive that, when you look at it, and we can really get behind our native friends and family and cousins, brothers, sisters, all that, so definitely support where you can support in this world, in this industry of sports, because our natives like to ball. But I guess until next time, bye-bye.
I know violence, I know chiefs, I know riders from the east, I know educated natives down to picket in the streets, middle fingers to police, fuck you, we come in peace. I know red-skinned hippies that be giving me the creeps. I know beauty, I know beach, I know savages and freaks, and I know a couple cousins even bougier than me. No, ain't elite, bougie native, yes indeed. Art exhibit to the club, and we roll it 20 deep. Copper on my neck, gold on my ring, feather on my hat, skin stitched chin, 100 warriors on my back, they be drumming when I sing, man, there ain't no way around it.
A Native Podcast is produced by G&G Advertising and Quartz Lake Productions.